This is Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about how the SEC now considers Ethereum to be a security. This won't be surprising to anyone who's been following this channel over the years, but it looks like, thanks to this leak from Consensys, that the SEC has secretly considered Ethereum a security since at least 2023. So let's review a little terminology. A commodity is an asset without an issuer. By contrast, you have things like currencies. You have the US dollar, which is issued by the Fed, by the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank in the US. US dollars are a central bank liability. They're a central bank currency. Then you have things like stocks, which are another kind of security. For example, Apple, the stock is issued by the parent corporation, Apple Inc. So we have a currency here, we have stocks, which are another kind of security. By contrast, there's no government or central bank or corporation like Apple, for example, behind gold, crude oil, wheat. These are physical commodities. These are assets without an issuer. And Bitcoin, too, has been widely recognized as a digital commodity. In other words, a digital asset without an issuer by governments and regulators all over the world for years and years at this point. Bitcoin was not sold to fund a corporation, foundation, or software development team. By contrast, ETH and Cardano were. Bitcoin did not have a pre-mine and initial insider allocation. ETH and Cardano, for example, did. Satoshi did mine Bitcoin to help to secure the network in the early days, but this was not a pre-mine. Satoshi mined Bitcoin after publishing the Bitcoin white paper and launching the network on January 3rd, 2009, so other people could and did mine Bitcoin. The other difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum is that Satoshi never moved or sold his Bitcoin. By contrast, Vitalik, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, has already dumped 25% of his coins. Satoshi never moved or sold his Bitcoin. His Bitcoin were not sold to fund a foundation or development work, unlike the Ethereum Foundation and the Cardano Foundation. Here's a slide of Vitalik giving a pre-sale marketing presentation of his new company, Ethereum. Buyers give Bitcoin, and in return, they get a pre-mined token. Notice how he's talking about how they had to set up their company in the right jurisdiction to avoid liability. This is not something that Satoshi did. Here we have the chief legal officer at Coinbase saying, I know that ETH is a commodity. You know that ETH is a commodity. The CFTC knows that ETH is a commodity. My response to him was, I know that ETH had a large pre-mine, changed consensus mechanisms, moving from proof of work to proof of stake. I know that ETH has a roadmap and a small group of insiders who coordinate hard forks. You know it too. Here's the problem. When your crypto has a large pre-mine, an original insider allocation of tokens, and then you switch to the consensus mechanism to proof of stake, as Ethereum did, what happens is the original whales, the original pre-mine beneficiaries, end up with a large amount of control over block production and transaction selection, because this is how proof of stake works. The more coins you have, the more blocks you get to produce and validate. So what proof of stake boils down to, it's basically just rule by the rich. It recreates the fiat system, which we're trying to get away from. By contrast, Bitcoin whales have no such control over Bitcoin since it runs on proof of work. If you're enjoying this video so far, I just ask you to take this time right now to hit the subscribe button and also give this video a like, maybe leave a comment and share this video as well with some friends. So I want to introduce you to Joe Lubin, if you don't know who he is, co-founder of Ethereum and founder of a company called Consensys. He was a huge beneficiary of Ethereum's pre-mine, at least we should assume he was, because he was a co-founder. When he's been asked how much ETH he holds, he always says no comment. He went on to, after founding ETH, to start this company, Consensys, which used to be based in Brooklyn, has now moved to Texas. This is basically an Ethereum company, and it has a number of subsidiaries that are very, very important to the ecosystem. Infura, for example, which a lot of people use to run their Ethereum nodes because Ethereum's too difficult to run your own node. They also own MetaMask, which is the most widely used DeFi and crypto wallet. So you have this really strange situation, huge conflicts of interest, where the guy who's a co-founder of Ethereum also runs these different companies that provide the infrastructure and the wallets for Ethereum. When Ethereum went through the merge in September 15th of 2022, I argued that Ethereum, by doing so, may have inadvertently turned itself into a security, or even more of a security than it originally was, by moving from proof of work to proof of stake. And it turns out that the SEC thinks so as well. It was really this move to proof of stake where Ethereum has shot itself in the foot. It is now about to be sued by the SEC, it looks like. The SEC began a formal investigation into what they called Ethereum 2.0, which is basically proof of stake Ethereum, on March 28th, 2023. We now know this from leaks from the Consensys counter lawsuit. Consensys received a Wells notice from the SEC on April 10th, 2024. A Wells notice is just a notice that the SEC is about to sue Consensys. So this is really going to happen. And what this also means, obviously, is you're not going to see an ETH ETF for years and years and years, if ever. So what is happening? Consensys is countersuing the SEC. The SEC is also sending out subpoenas to other firms in the Ethereum ecosystem, including the really parent firm, which is the Ethereum Foundation in Switzerland. And so this looks like this is a lawsuit that really is going to happen. Now, some people cite this guidance from Bill Hinman, who used to be the director of the Division of Corporate Finance over at the SEC. This was a famous speech he gave in San Francisco in June of 2018. And this is what he said. And so when I look at Bitcoin today, I do not see a central third party whose efforts are a key determining factor in the enterprise. He's basically applying the Howey test to Bitcoin here and demonstrating that Bitcoin fails the Howey test and is thus not a security. If you don't want to be a security, this is one test you definitely want to fail, as Gary Gensler likes to say. The Bitcoin network on which Bitcoin functions is operational and appears to have been decentralized for some time, perhaps from inception. This is again Bill Hinman speaking. Applying the disclosure regime of the federal securities law to the offer and resale of Bitcoin would seem to add little value. In other words, Bitcoin fails the Howey test. And putting aside the fundraising that accompanied the creation of Ether, now that's a really big thing to bracket because this really was where the scam began. Based on my understanding of the present state of Ether or ETH, the Ethereum network and its decentralized structure, current offers and sales of Ether are not securities transactions. So this was an informal speech given by the director of corporate finance. He has no power to change the history of U.S. securities law or to change what the Howey test really means. And the problem with this is he was a very conflicted individual. At the time he gave this speech, he was on the payroll and was making millions from a pro-Ethereum law firm. So none of this changes the fundamental nature of Ethereum, having this pre-mine being issued by a small group, and then that small group having control over its development. Very, very different from Bitcoin. Ever since Ethereum was headed into the merge, we've been hearing from crypto people, from Ethereum people, how this meant that Ethereum was going to flip in Bitcoin, which just means that it would end up with a larger market cap than Bitcoin. In fact, the opposite has been the case. Ethereum has been falling against Bitcoin since September of 2022 when the merge took place. So this has been absolutely disastrous for those who hold Ethereum instead of Bitcoin. So what's coming next? Consensys will be sued soon. That is very clear from the Wells notice that Consensys received. Then what do I think is going to happen next? I think the Ethereum Foundation, which has also been receiving subpoenas, the Ethereum Foundation, Vitalik, Joe Lubin, other founders and co-founders of Ethereum will all be sued for violating securities law. Is this bad news for Ethereum? I think Consensys makes it quite clear in their lawsuit, in which the complaint reads, the SEC's unlawful seizure of authority over ETH would spell disaster for the Ethereum network and for Consensys. The real problem here is if you have something that is this centralized and can easily be sued and damaged, then you don't really have a powerful new money that the world can use. Here's another question. Should Bitcoiners stand shoulder to shoulder with our Ethereum brothers against the SEC? Nope, I don't think so. I don't care. I hope they lose. They issued unregistered securities and made billions from it. The Ethereans spent years spreading FUD against Bitcoin. They spent years telling the world that Bitcoiners were narrow-minded, laser-eyed idiots using old tech. They spent years telling the world that Bitcoin was destroying the environment and wasting energy when the exact opposite is true. The other thing, Ethereum has been the foundation for endless scams, endless ICOs, endless garbage. Ethereum has done more than perhaps any other thing in the world to help to muddy the waters and to delay the Bitcoin revolution. And I think Safe says it best when he says that Ethereum is the mother from which all the shitcoins spring. But it definitely does look like the days of Ethereum are numbered. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.